Why do we dream?
I think this is where I would say dreams are still one of the big unsolved mysteries of science. There's no one clear evidence-based reason why we dream. There are some good theories, though, and one theory is that we dream to help us prepare for things we might experience after we wake up. Another theory is just that we dream about whatever we have experienced, so this kind of continuity between what we experience in our lives and then that just appears in our dreams. Another theory is that dreams promote social bonding, and this is relevant to my own research. The idea is that we dream in order to make sense of our interpersonal relationships with other people, in particular, close friends, family members, romantic partners, that kind of thing.
Can you elaborate a little bit on that? That's one of those things like I know what that means, but I don't know what that means, if that makes any sense.
Well, one of the things that my research has revealed is that there's associations between people's interpersonal relationship variables like attachment style and the content of dreams. So when people feel more insecure in their romantic relationships, they tend to have more negative dreams about those partners, including things like jealousy and betrayal and conflict. And for people who feel more secure, they tend to have dreams, again, of those partners with themes of support and nurturance.
That kind of in my own personal life, right? Like I remember one time my wife and I loved this thing from Pizza Hut called the dinner box. It was a thing between us. And I had a dream that she got a dinner box without me. And I was mad at her for like 2 weeks. Like why would you even do that? Is that the kind of thing that we're talking about? Like I dreamed that you did something and now I'm mad at you about that.
Yeah, that's definitely a thing. And this is maybe the part of my research that resonates most with people because they express something similar to what you just described, where somebody does something to make you upset in the dream, and then you wake up and feel upset about it. And sometimes it can be mild, sometimes it can be like the pizza box thing. But other times it can be more intense. Sometimes it can be dreams about betrayal or abandonment, and those can cause real conflict and real problems with people in relationships.
Would you say kind of in general that our dreams are trying to tell us something?
Yes and no. I think there's a way to answer that question where the answer is yes, and I think that the yes answer involves people understanding their personal insecurities, or maybe not, maybe something positive about themselves that they hadn't been thinking about in their minds, or trying to remind them about these features of their life that they should be paying attention to. That being said, there's a way to interpret that where the answer is no, and that's something like, is the dream trying to warn us about something that will happen in the future, like a kind of prophetic dream? And that we don't have any evidence for.
If you're always thinking your spouse is cheating on you, then the dream about your spouse cheating on you probably does says a lot more about you than the spouse. But if you
Correct.
suddenly have this dream, then maybe your subconscious is putting the pieces together. Is that a dramatic interpretation of it?
Yeah, and to your point, there are other studies that don't have to do with dreams about people's intuitions about their partners perhaps being unfaithful. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes those intuitions are correct in the case where someone's partner starts behaving very differently.
How, like, if you look kind of outside of like relationships, how else do dreams seem to affect us in our daily lives? Like when we wake up, how do the dreams that we have seem to affect us?
Yeah, that's a good question. So my research, being a social psychologist, my research does focus more on interpersonal relationships and social relationships. That being said, there are other studies from other laboratories showing that people can sometimes derive creative inspiration from their dreams. We do see that people who they deal with things like computer science or physics or chemistry, sometimes have dreams in those languages and wake up and they think, oh, this is cool. I'm going to try this as a potential solution to the problem that I've been working on. There's famous anecdotal examples like the scientist who invented the periodic table. Apparently, that came to him in a dream. Paul McCartney apparently dreamed the song "Yesterday" and then woke up and wrote it down, and it became this classic song. So sometimes there's that. Sometimes there's some creative inspiration or problem solving or rehearsal, and so sometimes that can affect people after they wake up.
Why are dreams like real but not real? In the sense that I'll be playing basketball at the place that I go and play basketball with, but in the audience is a shark and the basketball is a cake. Like, why is it real but not real?
So there's a few ways to answer that. One is that most dreams are actually pretty normal and mundane. And the reason why we have the stereotype of dreams as having all this bizarre stuff is because the bizarre stuff we're more likely to remember because it stands out relative to the kind of mundane stuff. So what I tell people is if you start keeping a regular nightly dream journal and you write down everything that's in your head immediately when you wake up, and you can't let, social media distract you. Like, you have to wake up and immediately write stuff down, otherwise you'll forget it. But if you get into the habit of doing that, and then you look back on your dreams over a few weeks, you'll see, oh, most of it is just like, I'm going to the grocery store and work and hanging out with friends, and it's normal, and there's no sharks in the audience necessarily. That stuff does come up from time to time, but it's uncommon. And we don't necessarily realize that until we look at the whole picture. Now, when those bizarre elements do appear, sometimes those are explained by other things that we have experienced or encountered while we're awake. So if you have a dream that has dragons in it, maybe you were like, reading Harry Potter before going to bed or something like that. And, there's some aspect of what you've experienced in waking life that would explain why that dream element is there. It might seem a little bit out of place, but it's coming from somewhere that we can point to. And the third explanation is, that your mind is putting stuff together in a creative way, and it does seem bizarre and it does seem random, but when you're asleep, it's kind of like a safe place for your mind to start experimenting a little bit with some stuff. So it's like, oh, okay, basketball, but let's throw in a shark and just see what happens. And, you're safe in the dream. Like, the shark's not going to get you. So that's kind of like, just a space for that kind of creative stuff to happen.
So it can be as simple kind of as like the shark is in the dream because I've been reading this book about the ocean recently, right, and the cake is in the dream because my son's birthday is coming up.
There you go.
Not because the cake is a symbol of the loss of my son's childhood as he turns 6, right? It's like, no, it's not that complicated.
That's a great point, and I want to double click on that because you might go to the bookstore and see a kind of dream encyclopedia book that tells you that there's a specific meaning, like if you dream of a cake, it means this, and if you dream of a shark, it means that. Total bunk. There's no one-to-one dream interpretation of those kinds of symbols.
Why does that stuff exist then? Like, why did we have such a, there has to be this deeper meaning to this?
Well, I mean, I think in general, people have a tendency to look for meaning in things, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. It can steer us in some pretty wacky directions, but that seems to me to be a feature of who we are as a species, I guess. We look for meaning in things, and it's fun, too, to think about, what this could mean. And if you have a dream about something, like what it reveals about you, it's a fun practice. And most of the time it's pretty harmless. I do advise people not to take that stuff too seriously because we don't want people making any major life decisions based on something that's, not really evidence-based.